Welcome back to Crappy Reviews. I'm Jeff. Today I just wanted to go over how I switched from a crop sensor to a full frame system for not a lot of money. Here I have the Sony a7 Mark II. It was released in 2014, and you're probably thinking to yourself right now, Jeff, why would I buy a camera from 2014? Well, I'll give you some reasons why. First off, you can get a Sony a7 Mark II and a 28-70 kit lens for under $1,000. Or you can just get the body itself for under $900. Second, this camera has some pretty good specs for its age. It has a 24.3 megapixel full frame sensor. That competes with a lot of today's mid-range full frame cameras. Also, it has 5-axis in-body stabilization, which means if your lens doesn't have any optical stabilization, the camera will handle it for you. Now let's go over some of the goods about this camera. It has a full metal body, it has light weather sealing, I call it splash proof. It has programmable buttons on the outside, which you can program most functions into, and it has a small mirrorless body. Now I want to talk about some things I don't like about this camera, because it's definitely not perfect. To start off with, the screen on the back is not a touchscreen like most cameras are today. You have to use the buttons on the side to navigate around the menus, which isn't that bad once you get used to it, but it's definitely an inconvenience. The other problem I have with the screen is it's not a full flip out screen. It does flip out and up, but it does not flip to the front of the camera. So if you're planning on using this for videos or vlogging, keep that in mind. The next thing I don't like about this camera is the battery size. It only comes with a 1020 milliamp hour battery, which sucks because this is a mirrorless camera. So when this camera is on, the sensor in either your back screen or electronic viewfinder is always on. So it eats through batteries like it's birthday cake. So since the camera eats through batteries fairly quickly, you're going to have to go out and get some extra batteries. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to use your camera very long. The problem with this is the Sony branded batteries are about $50 a pop. What I ended up doing was going on Amazon and buying a third-party battery. I ended up going with the RAV Power Kit, which comes with 2 batteries that are 1100 milliamp hour, which is a little bit bigger than the Sony branded battery. And it comes with a USB dock that has 2 slots, so you can charge without using the wall charger. The next thing I wanted to talk about that bothers me about this camera is actually the camera body itself. The problem with it is it's small, which my hand ends up hanging off the end of the camera, which is normally not a big deal, but I do have several lenses that are quite big and makes it uncomfortable to hold the camera. One of the solutions I found to this though was getting a grip extender that bolts onto the bottom of the camera. This causes it so my hand doesn't hang off, and it has a tripod mount built right into it. The problem with this though is it covers the battery door, and as you know, you go through a lot of batteries. So you have to remove this every time you want to change a battery out, which kind of gets annoying after a while. Next, I wanted to go over some of the lens options that you can use for this camera. Let me get this stuff out of the way. If you end up buying your camera with the kit lens, it comes with a Sony 28-70 f3.5 to 5.6 full frame lens. It's not a bad lens for a kit lens, and as you can see, it's very small. This might be your option if you're looking for a smaller camera that's not so heavy to carry around. The lens does have optical stabilization, which works with the in-body stabilization of the a7 Mark II. Your next option for lenses on this camera are Sony branded lenses. I haven't bought any other Sony branded lenses, but they are optically clear, but they're expensive. Me, on the other hand, I prefer to go the third-party route. Here I have a Tamron 28-75 f2.8 lens. This lens is optically pretty close to the same offering from Sony for 1/3 the price. Your best option for lenses might be using an adapter. There are several adapters on the market, but most notably there's the Metabones, which is around $400, and the Sigma MC11, which is around $250. This MC11 allows me to adapt my Canon EF lenses to the Sony E mount. I have used this adapter on multiple branded lenses. I've used it with my Canon 70-200L lens, which unfortunately died this summer, but when it was working, it worked beautifully. I've also used it with the Sigma 100-400, which I know is a Sigma lens, but this is compatible with this and it works a little bit better. I've also used it with the Tokina 11-16mm that I reviewed last summer. Yes, this lens does work on a full frame camera at 16mm, so if if you get lucky, some of your aps-c lenses may still work on your full frame camera. So this camera does do video, but it's probably not the answer to your video prayers. Like I said before, this camera doesn't have a flip out screen, so if you plan on using this for vlogging or certain videos, you're not going to be able to tell if you're in frame or not. The other problem is this camera does not do 4K, so it does 1080p at 60 frames a second, which shouldn't be an issue because that's what I'm filming on now. The problem I have with this camera is the video controls are not very user friendly, and it takes a while to get everything set properly. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch over to this camera with my Tamron 28-75mm to test out the image stabilization and the image quality. This lens does not have optical stabilization, so any stabilization will be handled in body. So now I'm hand holding the Sony a7II Mark II. We're just going to walk around a little bit so we can test out the stabilization and just see what the video looks like. It's kind of dark right now, so I apologize. The ISO might be a little bit higher than normal. I'm going to show you some pictures that I've taken over this summer, just so you can see the image quality of this camera. So for the last part of this video, I'm filming with the Tokina 11-16mm lens attached to the camera with the Sigma MC11, just so you have an idea. In conclusion, I think this camera is great for anyone that's looking to do photography, not so much video. But you have plenty of options, plenty of lens choices, and it's cheap for a full frame camera.